When Ryan Caldwell moved back to his hometown of Charleston, South Carolina after years away working in Chicago, he didn't expect to find answers to the emotional puzzles he'd carried with him for so long. At 32, he was successful in his field. He'd built a steady career as a digital branding consultant, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was missing. It wasn't the city or even the pace of life. It was human connection, something real, something deep. Something that a hug, yes, a simple hug, could sometimes reveal more honestly than 1,000 words. It all started when Ryan reconnected with an old high school friend, Amanda Grayson. She was bright, magnetic, and always seemed to understand people in ways that transcended small talk. She worked as a behavioral therapist now, and her insights into human behavior were often startling in their accuracy. They bumped into each other at a local coffee shop, and the moment they saw each other, Amanda wrapped her arms around him in a warm, full-bodied hug. It wasn't one of those stiff, polite gestures. It was real, intentional. Later that evening, as Ryan sat on his porch sipping coffee, he couldn't stop thinking about it. There had been a subtle intensity in the way Amanda held him, not romantic per se, but deeply emotional. It lingered longer than necessary, just enough to stir something in his chest. Was it simply the warmth of seeing an old friend, or was it something else? His curiosity kicked in, and he did what any overthinking man with an internet connection might do. He started looking into the psychology of hugs, especially from women. To his surprise, there were entire studies, anecdotes, and even clinical articles discussing the emotional language of touch. Ryan learned that when a woman hugs you, especially without obligation or context, it often carries emotional significance. He found that a woman's hug can express comfort, affection, trust, vulnerability, or even unspoken attraction. According to several relationship psychologists, women, more attuned to emotional nuance, often use physical contact as a way of reinforcing trust or establishing emotional safety. And when the hug is warm, lingering, or includes a squeeze, it's often an invitation to connect on a deeper emotional level. That night he messaged Amanda. "Hey, thanks for the coffee and the hug earlier. Weird question, but do you think hugs mean something more than we admit?" She responded almost immediately. "Definitely. A lot more than people think." He smiled, rereading her words. Something told him this reconnection would lead to something significant. Over the following weeks, Amanda and Ryan began spending more time together. Not in an explicitly romantic way, at least not at first. They volunteered at a community center, joined the same morning yoga class, and had long talks about life over dinner. Every time they met, Amanda always greeted him with a hug. And slowly, those hugs became something Ryan anticipated. No, craved. There was one evening after a long volunteer shift that Amanda leaned in and hugged him without a word. She rested her head lightly on his shoulder, and for a moment everything paused. The noise of traffic, the pull of time, the expectations of the world. Ryan placed a hand on her back, not saying a thing, just holding the silence with her. After a while, Amanda pulled back and looked at him with a kind smile. "You're safe," she said. "What do you mean?" he asked, a bit surprised. "You're one of the few people I can hug without feeling like I have to be on guard. That says a lot about how I feel when I'm around you." That moment burned itself into Ryan's memory. As they grew closer, Amanda began explaining some of the psychological truths she understood about human touch, especially hugs from women. She told Ryan that when a woman hugs a man tightly, it can mean she sees him as a protector or someone she feels emotionally secure with. If she adds a light touch to the back of his neck, it's often instinctual, a way of expressing deep connection or affection. If she leans her whole body in, it means she isn't holding back emotionally. "In your case," she added once, brushing a hand through her hair, "I feel like I don't need to protect myself emotionally." That's rare, Ryan. He started noticing the same in other people's behavior. Not just Amanda. At work, when a female colleague would give him a side hug during a team celebration, it felt casual, respectful. But the ones that lingered, the hugs where arms stayed wrapped around him a little longer or when heads leaned on shoulders, those were entirely different. Ryan wasn't the type to read too much into things, but now that he knew the science behind it, he started seeing emotional breadcrumbs everywhere. It wasn't long before his connection with Amanda started shifting. Their interactions weren't labeled, but they were loaded with meaning. One night, they were walking through downtown Charleston after dinner. The streets glowed with warm amber light, and a soft wind rustled the trees overhead. Amanda stopped suddenly, turned to face him, and without a word, hugged him. But this time something was different. She pressed her face into the crook of his neck and exhaled slowly. Her arms circled tighter around his waist, and she didn't let go. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were glassy. "Sometimes I feel like we talk too much and say too little," she said. Ryan didn't hesitate. "Then let's just be quiet and stay here." And so they stood on the sidewalk in that warm embrace, surrounded by the soft hum of the city. And in that moment, everything between them shifted. It wasn't just about friendship anymore. That night, Amanda told him something she'd never shared with anyone. "After my last relationship, I stopped hugging people. Just couldn't. Felt like lying with my body. But with you, it's like I'm learning how to be close again." Ryan knew then that every hug she'd given him was a piece of her heart she had been slowly handing back to the world. And he had received it without even knowing. They didn't rush into defining their relationship. Over time, their hugs turned into kisses, their dinners into sleepovers, and their long walks into weekends away together. But even months later, it was the hugs that mattered most. One morning, Amanda whispered to him as they made breakfast, "Do you remember the first hug I gave you at the cafe?" "I think about it all the time," he replied. "I wasn't sure why I hugged you like that. But now I know. My body knew before my heart did." Ryan realized something that day. When a woman hugs you and it feels real, when it's warm and stays with you long after it ends, you can assume it means something more. It may not be romantic. It might be comfort, trust, healing, or even the very first step toward love. Women often communicate through subtleties, through energy, tone, expression, and yes, through hugs. If she pulls you in close, rests her head on your chest, or lingers in the silence, she's telling you something. She might not say the words, but her body is speaking volumes. Over time, Ryan and Amanda would go on to build a life together, grounded not just in shared interests and goals, but in emotional awareness. Their relationship was not driven by declarations, but by understanding the quiet, psychological truths behind every shared touch. Years later, at their wedding reception, Amanda told the guests during her toast, "I hugged Ryan before I even understood what he meant to me. And I think sometimes,